welcome to any of our channels that are mirroring us. We appreciate your support and participation. Love having you guys join us on here. So we watched, 1.5 times the Citizens United movie, which I want to go on record as saying that my personal opinion is the Citizens United decision from the Supreme Court is quite likely one of the worst decisions that we'll experience in our lifetime. And in November, when it all goes crooked and we all say, wow, how did that happen? You're going to be able to point back to Citizens United as being the source cause. So I am no fan of the Supreme Court. And I'd just like everybody to know what my position is. So we're here with Ping tonight. Welcome our friend Connie. She's worked hard on putting together a presentation and a discussion for us. Thank you for sharing your time and bringing us all this information, Connie. We really appreciate it. And I think we'll just launch right into it. And the same rules apply. If we have questions, we'll catch them at an appropriate time and do them in bold. And so I want to welcome everybody and welcome Connie. Thank you for being here. And Connie and I were just talking. It's a big day in North Carolina, and I don't think it's going to be a happy day. But thanks for coming and doing the show with us, Connie. So take it away.
Good evening. Thank you, Art, for having me. I want you all to know that Citizens United has a long history. It's not something that sprung up all of a sudden. And it's something that they have been pushing and pushing and pushing to try and get through. And they have tried many different ways. And they have eked away at the Federal Election Commission laws and at what we call the Bipartisan Campaign Reform Act, BACRA. You're going to hear some new terms tonight. Some people know the terms, some people don't. But it's a serious issue. This all started out with the original FCC and what we call the McCain-Feingold Act, which was the BICRA, the Bipartisan Campaign Reform Act. At this point in time, the FEC had laws, had regulations, but there were only 6 of them, and they weren't taking care of the things that were important in our election finance. So if bipartisan, McCain, we know is Republican, right? Feingold, Democrat. They pushed together a bill that they got passed to reform campaign finance. During this whole time, secretly behind the scenes, we started out with a few suits against the FCC. Now, one of them started from a group of people who decided to make a movie that was going to be different and oppose the views of Michael Moore for Fahrenheit 9/11. And they made that movie, and there was no problem with it. They called themselves Citizens United. They are a non-profit organization, which means no taxes. They pay no taxes on this money, folks. I know I keep hammering at taxes, but they pay no taxes. They are a non-profit. Now that means that all the people that give money to Citizens United can do what they like. So Citizens United made a movie that was all against Hillary. And they were going to release it when there were like 5 or 6 states about to have their primary. And when they were going to have their primary, the FCC said, you can't do that because this is telling people not to vote for a candidate. Well, behind the scenes, like a bunch of little suckers that they are, we have this thing called the Wisconsin Abortion Reform Law. And they got permission to place ads during election time because it was issue-based. Citizens United jumped on that precedent. It's the thing that we call stare decisis, the Latin term. And every time somebody is questioned by Congress, they are asked, will you follow precedent? Stare decisis means that you are going to leave things following the pattern that they are. Precedent. Now, the Wisconsin abortion reform group broke precedent because they said, we're not this campaign guy and we're not for that campaign guy. This is issues. So Citizens United went and take this case to district court in Washington, D.C. Now, that was a very strategic maneuver because Washington, D.C. is not a state. They don't have a state Supreme Court. They don't have an appellate court. So they got right from the District of Columbia to the Supreme Court. And this is how they came to be. Now they go before the Supreme Court and they say freedom of speech, freedom of speech, freedom of speech. We should be allowed to say whatever we like because we're a nonprofit and we're a political PAC and we're this and we're that. And we want to put out this thing on Hillary. And it's not a candidate or pro-candidate. It is just showing her character and what we think about her. Now, Roberts, I won't say what I think of him because I've been asked to keep it clean. He got the lawyer for Citizens United and right in front of everybody in the Supreme Court said, why is your case so narrow? Let's broaden this case and let's not have it just be focused on issues. Let's have this based on the right of your First Amendment speech as corporations. Now, Susie, would you put up the first link? Susie's going to put up a link here.
She's got the Washington Post link up already. Is that the one you spoke of?
Yes.
Okay, so she's good to go.
Okay.
Yeah, she'll be on task.
Now, this tells you the story of how they filed in D.C. and how they got right to the Supreme Court, which is a pretty fast track. How many cases go on for 10, 15 years before they ever get heard from the Supreme Court? They got right there, and that's the link that will show you that. Now, the next link, Susie, can you put this up? The one about the FCC? This next link that you're going to see, and I urge you all to look at it, is the FEC's campaign contribution laws from 2007 to 2012, which would have been left as they were if we did not have BICRA and if we did not have Citizens United. And these limits are quite shocking because there's very few of them, if you look to the right-hand columns, that say unlimited, and they're mostly from the national parties to give to senators, to give to other people in their campaigns, what a person can give as a contribution, how much can be raised and given out at any given time. Now, through Citizens United, they got gutted BICRA and they gutted the FEC rules. And they now have been able to form these super PACs, as Stephen Colbert did, to show you the foolishness of it, and just create the most incredible monster where foreign countries can anonymously donate to these nonprofit political action committees and buy the elections in our country, and not just on the federal level, on the state level, on the local level. And it's, yes, I did say Stephen Colbert, Rise PDX. He started a super PAC. He went into Congress and he petitioned to start a super PAC, and he got permission, and he has created a super PAC. And he has put Jon Stewart in control because the actual candidate cannot have any say about the use of the super PAC. So he lets his good friend Jon Stewart, who he's not supposed to talk to about the super PAC, and he's showing people in plain English how this is done. Because don't think that Stephen Colbert and Jon Stewart don't talk about how the super PAC money is going to be used, because he did it. He did it to show the ridiculousness of the super PAC. It's very, very serious. So we got to understand that we started with the Wisconsin, here we go back to Wisconsin, abortion reform law, where they were able to campaign on an issue. Then we went to McCain-Feingold with what we call the bipartisan campaign finance reform. And then we came up against Citizens United saying that just because they made a movie about Hillary that was going to air on DirecTV and pay-per-view and video on demand while there were 5 states holding a primary. They didn't get to do it, of course, because the case was held up in the Supreme Court. But this was the premise, that it was their right to free speech. And the thing that really is incredibly bothersome about this is that Roberts told them to go and broaden the case. So it's not only just going to be issues, it's now going to be incredible, horrific smear campaigns against our candidates, all candidates like you have never seen in your life.
So, and we've seen that those floodgates open during the Republican primaries, and I'm sure from what I've read and understand, the Democratic side is the same thing. So most all of the politicians are bought and paid for. But the amount of money flowing in the Republican primaries was just outrageous. I know the Las Vegas casino owners funded the Gingrich campaign, yes, not once, which was a $5 million donate, but a second time that was a little quieter from his wife that donated another $5 million. So that was 2 people donating to one candidate more than any collective donations had been in history before, and that was apparently a small amount compared to the kinds of donations the super PACs are providing for now Romney as the presumptive, and even Barack Obama, who has a really strong mechanism in place.
I don't think Obama's going to be able to raise the kind of money that Romney is going to be able to raise.
Well, he doesn't
without selling us out.
Right, or selling us out even more. Now I want to speak a little bit to the timeline of this, because typically these things happen over years and years. And do you happen to have sort of a timeline available from the inception of McCain-Feingold through, yes, say 2010, 2011, or I, yes, guess the 2008 election, which is when they were doing the ads for Hillary, which brought everything to the Supreme Court, correct?
Right. The 2008, they weren't allowed.
And
the decision was February 22nd, 2010.
Okay.
When they started being able to get this through to the Supreme Court.
Right. And
the timeline. McCain-Feingold started in 2002.
And then the decision was rendered in 2010, so a short period of 8 years from reasonably stringent controls to no controls, opening it wide open. Yes. Which in legislative, yes, terms that's just a flash of an eye, is it not?
And the Citizens United case was taking place during the last presidential election at the Supreme Court.
That's right. That's right.
So it was that quick.
So, as a, I don't know if many people know this, but you have a finance background and you're a finance professional and tax professional.
No, I just do taxes. So I get really upset when I hear about all of this money that can be spent tax-free. Now, what you have to understand, that there are people who are known media political operatives, Roger Ailes being the #1 in this country. And he is controlled by Murdoch, Rupert Murdoch. Now, there's been a rumor going around that Rupert Murdoch has bought the AP, but I haven't been able to verify that yet. The Associated Press comes across the wires. It's a competitor to Reuters. Mm-hmm. And that's a pretty scary thing, because he's just been ruled unfit to run newspaper publications and media publications in the UK with the trials that's going on there, with them breaking into people's cell phones and listening to their messages and doing all kinds of illegal things for his papers.
Well, it just shows again the consolidation of power by the elite, and the rules don't apply.
Roger Ailes is the head of Fox News, and Rupert Murdoch is the owner.
Right.
here in this United States. So every time you watch Fox Family, Fox News, Fox Finance, you're hearing Murdoch and you're hearing Roger Ailes. Now, this Roger Ailes, I'm sure he's had a large part in getting this kind of law passed, because his original career was, he was called in as a political consultant after the first Nixon debate to spiff up Nixon so that he didn't appear so horrible on the camera. And he did it. But he also picked Dan Quayle to be the running mate to get the money from the Midwest and to support him. Yep. And that was a whole political plan. Roger Ailes is worse than Lee Atwater would ever hope to be. And I know for some of you younger people, you might not remember these names, but these were the people who did the dirt campaigns for Nixon.
Yep, I remember Lee Atwater from years and years ago.
Lee Atwater died of brain cancer.
Right. He was from South Carolina, and he also managed the first George Bush campaign, and I think he had input early on when W was being, promoted as a candidate. By that time, Karl Rove had taken over that kind of spot. But I want to go back to something you mentioned. I made a note that the original argument in front of the Supreme Court from Citizens United was based on First Amendment free speech rights. Is that accurate?
Regarding issues.
Okay. And then
not promoting candidates.
And then the justice.
They didn't to vote for Hillary or not vote to Hillary.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a smear. Susie, can you put up the movie trailer and the poster, the movie poster for Hillary the movie? The trailer is just incredible. They were just literally ripping her to shreds.
And so they argued that on basis of free speech. And then the justices, specifically John Roberts, broadened the conversation. Isn't that an unusual tactic? I mean, typically, isn't it limited to the case brought before them, or do they have the ability? Well, clearly they have the ability to broaden it at their discretion.
Well, this is the point of the issue that is just going to make you cringe, because I mean, it's like shocking, this issue, because the Supreme Court interpreted the First Amendment as Congress shall make no law, and they considered themselves, we're not Congress, so we'll do what we want.
That's true. They manipulated it, and the irony there is they were able to manipulate the situation using the First Amendment as the tool, but in retrospect, now with Occupy arguing First Amendment rights, it's the other extreme. They defend it, they defend it and say, oh, this doesn't fall under First Amendment, but they control all possible exercises of free speech in direct opposition to what an average interpretation of the First Amendment is. So again,
the next thing that it makes this even more disgusting than you can imagine, and it just fills in a whole lot of holes in these pictures. As I said, the first challenge to this was the Wisconsin abortion reform law, where they were able to put on these issues. The second thing is Citizens United opened the door, not just for corporations, but for unions. Unions are now able to have their own super PACs. So what are they doing? They're union busting. And they have the money. We have the lack of jobs. We have the right to work states that we're in, you and I. So the union busting is part of the grand scheme.
And yeah, I hadn't considered that, but I know Organizer X is in the chat, and he has a pretty good broad background on union history and labor relations, and that is an interesting observation. So when you say unions, are you speaking of the union institution as opposed, or the union management, the union bureaucracy, as opposed to the union members on the ground? Like, is it a political segment, or could you define that a little bit more clearly?
Wasn't it just in Wisconsin where they tried to take away, what do they call it? Bargaining. Union bargaining, the right to go to the table. What was that called?
Collective rights bargaining, right?
Yes. They try to eliminate that. If you eliminate the rights of the unions to strike, which they're doing, we're not allowed in this country to have a national strike since 1935. Thank you. It's collective bargaining. Thank you, Hand. Okay. We're not allowed now to have people try to recruit their co-workers to form unions because they will be fired, and have discrimination against them and no promotions. And they are going to break the unions, and then it's only going to be the corporations who will have any power. And I think that's one of the reasons why so many unions have gotten behind Occupy, is because their union leaders have seen this and said, whoa, somebody's got to speak up. We can't do it directly, because if they come against us, we're hosed. Because not all the union members are happy that they have to pay dues and things like that, and they don't really see the benefit while they're working. They don't see the benefit until they have cancer treatments, until one of their children has some kind of medical problem, until they need to go for the Family Leave Act, or until they go to retire. All they see is they pay dues, pay dues, pay dues, and never really are able to strong on the corporations to get what they need. Look at MCI, when they had that action against MCI in New York City, because that CEO is taking home $1 gazillion a year, and the workers for MCI are having pay cuts. They're having their health insurance benefits reduced. They have to pay more. They have to pay higher deductibles, and they get less coverage while he's rolling in it. And so the union members themselves are getting very discouraged, but this is all part of the plan. And to take away the collective bargaining and force the unions to the table and let them have the ability to strike, and let them have the ability for other unions to go out in sympathy, which is against the law now, they are going to bust up the unions.
And when you say they, specifically, who are they?
The 1%ers and the big corps.
Okay, 1%ers and the big corps. So I'm thinking you can probably see the chat, and X has given us some background, and one of the comments he makes is that members have to sign dues authorization cards for political contributions. And my question back to him was, let me see, the members have to approve where the political, so the union has a PAC. The members have to sign the cards. I'm trying to follow the money trail. But the PAC cannot release the funds until approved by the members. Is that correct, X? I'm just trying to get the picture.
Yes.
I wish we had him on at the same time with you.
Now,
so
that would be like asking every shareholder of a corporation to vote on where they wanted their political action money to go.
Uh-huh.
So the unions are at a distinct disadvantage.
Okay, great. So we have pretty much an assault on all fronts against individual, ground level political power because of the money involved. So
yes, union busting is horrible.
Right. And we know in North Carolina it's a right to work state, or as I like to say, a right to be prevented from having a job state.
And many people are.
Right.
I want to also mention that there are a few things going on where the Supreme Court is going to revisit Citizens United. It will not happen probably until after the election, but they're about to revisit it. They still are split 5-4, so it doesn't look like it's going to do any good. But they have to revisit it because I was watching, I don't know, those of you who have TiVo and DirecTV, I did a whole thing on this where I just put in Citizens United, and my DirecTV actually went and searched YouTube. Now, it didn't give me links, but it showed me all these films where the Unitarian Church in Fairfield, Connecticut is fighting back against Citizens United. And they had the representatives and their senators from Washington, D.C. come in and talk to them. And the things that these people were saying were absolutely bone-chilling. It was not like you think, where you vote for me and I'm going to let so-and-so vote for what you want and I'm going to donate $250,000 to your campaign. This thing has actually become so twisted, it's like, you do what I want, or before you go home for recess, we're going to drop $250 million in campaign smearing you.
Right, right.
So it's a threat to the politicians who want to be somewhat decent.
Right.
So the Unitarian Church in Fairfield, Connecticut is very involved in bringing this about. Bernie Sanders has a bill and a petition to fight Citizens United. There's so much going on with the fight against this that your head would spin, and as I said, they are about to revisit it. But in the meantime, this presidential election will be bought. And it doesn't matter who you go out and vote for. Doesn't matter.
Right.
Because we have these Diebold machines.
Right. And I always like to say the money comes with strings attached, and you just have to realize that. You have to believe it.
It's quite critical. Now we may, Ruth Ginsburg Bader, she has asked for the revisiting because of what she has termed as the loose money that's now released with no accountability. And they have only found 1 or 2 foreign countries pumping money into the super PACs. Not that many, but it's secret. So we really don't know. So anybody can just go from any country in the world that has money. Let's say Germany. Germany still has money. They're taking money from every other European country because they're not going to take the fall, you know. I mean, they're not. They're making everybody else pay. They could elect the next president of this country because the media blitz to the people. Well, Art, we've just watched it with this marriage amendment. This marriage amendment has nothing to do with marriage.
Right.
And how much money has been pumped in.
Right. And Ping is speaking about today in North Carolina in a general election, there's the very first constitutional amendment, which ostensibly is to ban gay marriage, but the reality of it, if you read the bill, is that there already exists a law on the books that the marriage is defined between man and woman, and this amendment and this law is constructed to be able to prevent anybody from challenging that definition in the court. So if you are common law partner, same-sex partner, whatever, and there's benefits involved, and you have a legal issue, if this amendment passes, which I'm afraid it's going to, then if you went before a court, presented your case, the court wouldn't even hear the case because the amendment prevents challenging the definition in a court of law. It's a legal manipulation, and the money that went behind that for approval is just huge. And it was money from all over the United States, maybe all over the world, you know. But that's what we're dealing with.
More than just gay marriage and spousal rights for common law couples, because North Carolina does not have common law marriage. But the thing that has always been is that they would recognize a marriage from another state if you met the criteria of a marriage from another state. Now they're doing this because many states are now about to have gay marriage or have gay marriage, and they don't want it recognized here. But this law goes deeper. This law also impacts when you go to bring charges of spousal abuse. It impacts health insurance for children of parents who are divorcing. I mean, there's all kinds of things that this impacts. Not just, but they've cloaked it to the religious people as, oh, marriage has to just be between a man and a woman. Well, that's the law anyway. You know, I mean, what is going on?
Right.
And it has to be changed.
We need to explain why we're bringing this up, though, Ping. We need so they have context. This actually seems like a tangent, but it totally relates to Citizens United because there was a lot of super PAC money coming into the state to address these and support not only district representatives who may or may not be in favor of this, but also surprisingly judges, because they want to bolster the judges to support the law when and if it's challenged. The judges don't run campaigns like local political offices. They're on the ballot, they're voted for, nobody knows what they stand for, and it all becomes who's got the money leverage in order to have these campaigns. And that money is coming from outside via the Citizens United decision to open the gates. Is that an accurate overview?
Yes, it is an accurate overview. And in a community that's as poor as this one, to see all these signs to vote for this amendment is pretty scary. And I mean, they're everywhere. And it makes me worry, because where did the money come from? The money was raised by super PACs. The super PACs were probably contacted by churches. It's really off the wall that North Carolina would even consider this. And the thing is we have had a whole lot of redistricting. So this is not only an off-election period vote. This is an election on May 8th, a primary, with no real important characters running. So the only people that are going to go there are the people who either are like you and I, learned about this and are outraged, or the people who are brainwashed and pushed by their churches.
It's this whole Citizens United thing is insidious, and I wish I had thought about it, but there was a New Yorker article during the past year that kind of took it apart too, and actually the New Yorker article referenced the actual political campaigns in North Carolina, and there's a political operative out of Raleigh who's a single person that's a conduit for the super PACs, and it is commonly known that he pretty much dictates election results in the state of North Carolina. And I can't remember his name, and I can't lay my hands on that article. But these are the sorts of challenges that Citizens United it just opened it up, you know, for it's like the robber barons take over elections.
And they don't have to report this.
That was going to be my next question. They don't have to publicly report, correct?
Nope.
So you have all this money coming in, all this money floating around, all these things happening, but there's no accountability and no responsibility for it. It's all just invisible.
It's very, very sad what has happened in our country. Now, we have the people in Connecticut that I told you about, Fairfield, Connecticut. We also have a law on the books from the 1800s and the early 1900s in Montana that is challenging Citizens United. Back when Montana, and maybe still is today, was nothing but coal mines and one-horse shops. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah, we're good.
Freeze?
No, we're good.
Okay, because I'm not seeing myself move on the camera.
Okay.
Anyway.
You look like you're dancing. You're beautiful. Just keep at it.
Okay. So what happened here is that, yeah, it's broken.
We're back. We should be back live on video, ladies and gentlemen. Yay, yay, yeah. Okay, yeah. Okay, great. I lost my place. Where were we at, Ping? We were talking about North Carolina, and Sue's got the New Yorker articles up, and also Kat. So that was pretty awesome. So I got to give them a bigger challenge. So where did we want to pick up again? I lost my place trying to fix this. Montana, okay.
Montana.
We're in Montana.
Montana, from way, way back when they were, you know, like a frontier company town where everybody owed everything to the company store, if you remember. Well, Montana put in effect a state law, constitution and law that a corporation could not donate to political campaigns to prevent the robber barons out there from preventing the state from growing out of the situation that it was in. They are issuing a challenge. They've lost the first round. As I said, the people in Fairfield, Connecticut are bringing a challenge because Connecticut also has state limitations. But the one that I think might have the best chance of getting through is Hawaii. Hawaii is also bringing a suit against Citizens United. Hooray, Hawaii!
Well, you were just waiting to shake that, weren't you? So, what is Hawaii's grounds for their suit?
They also have in their state constitution that corporations cannot donate but a certain amount of money. End of story.
Excellent. So
and there are many other states, but they haven't come forward yet.
Right. But they have to take the normal legal track, right? Because the Citizens United people jumped like the whole legal process by bringing the suit in D.C. because there's no levels there. If they had brought it in Wisconsin, it would have to go to appellate and state supreme, blah blah blah, and meander. But they just jumped over the whole thing, and that wasn't very nice.
But is there what we have this thing called stare decisis that every Supreme Court justice is questioned on before they are confirmed to the bench, and that is the key. There's two keys here: stare decisis, which means that you will follow the precedent. You will follow the facts of the law as they are. There were a few laws that overturned it. Roe versus Wade, Brown versus the Board of Education. Those were laws that went against stare decisis because they went against what was the precedent. They changed the whole 9 yards and they altered this country. So there is also precedence for going against stare decisis. And that's where this is going to come down to. Now, where I would like this to come down to is why Roberts asked the lawyers for Citizens United to broaden the scope of their case, knowing that he had the 5 justices.
Right. And is there an ability to bring a suit to open up that conversation? Like, is that a violation? Could somebody bring a suit on that particular question, or is that just an arbitrary decision the courts get to make?
I would like to impeach them.
You want to get rid of all of them? I agree.
I believe they could be impeached.
Yep. Well,
because they broke their oath to Congress.
That's a good point. So we have a good overview of the problem. I mean, it's pretty obvious. We got a court problem. We have a legal problem. We have a specific law being the Citizens United decision problem. So where are the solutions? What can we do as people to address that?
Well, until I finish this, and until you listen to this last recording that we're going to put up at the end of this interview, I really thought that we could work within the system. I'm not thinking that way now.
So if I ask you the revolution versus reform question, which side are you going to speak to?
Revolution. It's really done it for me.
Yep.
This has been one eye-opening experience.
Yep, and you took on this like project at our request, and we really appreciate it. And I think the chatters should know that Ping started researching this and reading, and there was a lot of back and forth. And every day she was like, "Oh my God, you wouldn't believe what I just found out." As she was figuring out the history and getting the information together for us, she was daily outraged at what she was finding. And I really appreciate all the time and energy and effort you put into this. I think it was a good follow-up to the the animated movie, which I think has a lot of good information in it. So
it fills in the bones.
Yeah, it fills it in, and your insight is is really valuable, and we appreciate it. Now, I think you had another link you wanted to toss out here as we close up on this.
It's an audio interview of John McCain and Senator Feingold, and the reporter who recorded it, and there's a transcript link also, said they could not believe how candid both of these senators were about how they feel about Citizens United when they had worked in a bipartisan fashion for many, many years to get what they call the Bipartisan Campaign Reform Act through. The Bipartisan Campaign Reform Act did not change the limits of the FCC, and if you go back and you look at the original link, the second link that Susie Q put up, it shows you that it was adjusted and indexed for inflation, but there were limits on what any one person could donate. And there was limits on what you could donate to your national committee and your local committee, and they had limits of where they could spend that too. And it was, it's very messed up that they just blew it right out of the water in 2 seconds by Roberts asking the lawyer for Citizens United to go back and broaden the scope of his case.
I hadn't heard that part about the broadening, and it's got me all wound up. But I want to, if you guys see that This American Life link that Sue's just put up, you absolutely must listen to that, because it will bake your new, well, not right now, not while you're on, but when we when we get off and we have our debrief, maybe listen to it, and it's really good information. And I'm not a really big McCain fan, but he spoke the truth in this interview. He was pretty much livid, and also I find it really kind of ironic that Russ Feingold was from Wisconsin, so the origin of all this came out of Wisconsin. I'm just saying.
Yes, Wisconsin.
We
might all have to move there.
Well, we're at least going to have to go there and help them shake things up. So,
under Citizens United, we can send all our money to Wisconsin.
To the good guys.
Yes.
Yep. Well, do you guys have any questions you want to toss Ping's way? If now would be a good time to do them. If you want to put them in bold, please. And while we're waiting for some questions to come up, I want to thank you very much for being here and spending your time. We really appreciate it. I want to thank all the viewers out there that have watched this via mirroring or screen capping. I especially want to thank the OPM production team. You guys know who they are. Sue's facilitated tonight. Zena, Uppity, and Clearly. You guys are awesome. I appreciate it. I know how much work you're doing. And you guys keep me on my toes, but I'm grateful to work with you every day. So we're seeing some questions. Ping, do you see them, or do you want me to read them off to you?
Yeah, somebody asked me, how did I decide on the name Ping? Well, Ping, with the flag T after the IP address, is the command to bring down the internet and to do distributed denial of service attacks. I used to be a Cisco Internetwork Engineering instructor. It's buried into what we call ICMP, Internet Control Management Protocol. Yes, Ping is a geek. Ping can speak in binary and hex.
And Short Glide asked about a viable solution, which your answer earlier was impeach the Supreme Court, which I'm all for.
I don't see any viable solutions except a total dismantling of our government and rebuilding a new one. And TARP, the part I was going to say about Hawaii is Hawaii has state federal election laws that they're still sticking to, and Hawaii is also going to bring a lawsuit against this, and the Supreme Court has agreed to revisit.
Any more questions coming out of the chat? Man, all these.
I didn't cuss, did I?
No, but all the chatters are all got potty mouth tonight. I don't know what that's about. I think
well, that's usually me.
You must have hit a nerve somewhere. Just kind of. We're once again holding up the mirror for the people to be reflected properly. Interview in a civics class.
Question about Hawaii. Hawaii has in their state constitution election laws that you can only donate so much per candidate, and they are going to fight Citizens United too.
Excellent.
It doesn't look like until we get a major change in the Supreme Court that anything's going to happen unless we do impeachment. Or why would Roberts ask Bowden, who was the lawyer, to broaden his scope? Was there a collusion there, knowing that he had the 5 votes? Is there something crooked going on in that Supreme Court? Because Kennedy was always a swing vote. How did he know Kennedy was going to vote with him?
That's true. That's true. And to answer your rhetorical question, is there something crooked going on? Well, duh. we know that. There's no question. That is just like, this is understood, right? I mean,
when is Scalia going to leave?
Oh God. When's Clarence Thomas going to leave? Yeah, I read an article on Clarence Thomas hasn't spoken a word in an argument before the Supreme Court in 10 years. Not one word.
We took our son when he was in 8th grade to go visit high schools. One of the schools we took him to was in Manhattan, and it was a Jesuit school. And we walked in the lobby, and what did they have there right as you walked in? But a big oil painting of Scalia because he had gone there. Well, that was the end of that school. He was trained by the Jesuits, Scalia, and they teach a real social conscience. So I don't know where this man lost his way.
I'm sure it had something to do with money, right? I mean, undoubtedly. So.
Well, they're all getting lots of money. You can bet on that, because when you think about all the advertising agencies, the political operatives, the political intelligentsia to frame the message, and the big bucks that they're getting, and we have no accountability for where this money is being spent, what's to stop the advertising agencies themselves from jumping in and becoming lobbyists, or just go visit the politicians and offer them bribes, or threaten that if they don't, they're going to dump, 50 million hours of airtime against them?
Right, exactly. Well, I think we could chase this around and around in circles for all night, so we can move over to the chat and do that.
Okay.
I want to let you go. Thank you so much for being on again. You're just lovely and animated and intelligent and articulate, and we really appreciate it. And
this is a very outrageous subject.
Oh yeah, and we need to talk more about it. There's some subjects we need to be talking more and more about out in the open, and I'm hoping we can use this as a platform to do that.
I just want to add one parting thought.
Okay.
Citizens United can do whatever they want. They have all the free speech they want. Corporations have all the free speech they want. And we have 25 people in a cage on the steps of Freedom Hall, and they're the only people who can have free speech.
And that pretty much sums it up. That was a great observation. I hope you'll join us on the chat in a few minutes. Take a bow.
Oh, yeah, I'm not going anywhere.
Take a bow, and thank you for everything and for the time and the energy.
Guys.
We appreciate it. And so
listen to that recording.
Oh yeah.
Pump that up again.
Yep. I think that recording is a must listen.
It's an outrage. You have to hear it.
We should put that recording on our site somehow. I got to think about that.
Yes.
That would be good.
Yes.
And
that's recent.
Oh yes.
That recording has been done, I think, in March.
Right. Not too far away. So I'm going to archive this. And thanks again to my production team. Thank you, Ping. We'll see you in a moment, and I'll join you guys on the chat here in just a few minutes. Thanks a lot for being here. Thanks for all you other guys out there watching. We really appreciate it. Have a good evening, and we'll talk in a bit.